hats off to you, Brad, because I know it has not been an easy journey at all.
No.
And and you have really done what you've needed to do to get back there. And that's one thing we talked about when you first came in is, you know, I told you, I said, Brad, I don't want you to not get back on a horse because you physically can't. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to get back on a horse, I want it to be because you don't want to get back on a horse.
Right. And that was such a good way of saying it, is you're not going to be limited by physical ability. You're going to be limited by choice.
Right.
But the other thing is, I had to choose to work this hard at home too.
Absolutely.
And I had some goals and some targets I wanted to reach, and we talked about, and we honestly believed that as we got farther along, the pain would get less, because that was a big thing for me. I have felt good for almost every day of my life up until that point. Mm-hmm. And then to have the chronic pain was probably my number one fear, is am I going to live in pain for a long time? Because, I mean, the pain pills were not helping, and sometimes you would turn to other alternatives, and I can understand how and why, but I didn't want to be trapped that way.
Right.
And so to look at how do you move forward, it took a lot of work from us to come in. You know, the 3 days a week was minor. It was the 4 days a week she wasn't there telling me to do it, that I had to get up and do it, that it was important. I mean, we're 9 times 7. How many days are we in? You know? It's not 12 sessions. It's not 4 weeks, 3 times a week. It's every day.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
And that was the hardest thing to get my head wrapped around, is this is my new norm.
Yeah.
I have to take a certain block of time every day and do something I don't want to do that's going to hurt worse than doing nothing.
Yes.
But if it hurts worse today, it might hurt less tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a backwards way for my mind to think, because it was not fun.
Right. A different way of thinking than you've ever thought before.
Yeah. Why would you intentionally do this to yourself so that you're better later? Because later didn't mean tomorrow or next week. It meant next month, or it was so far down the road you didn't see instant results. That's hard for Brad too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm an instant gratification kind of person by nature, and I want to see results just as fast with everything I do.
Right.
And I would say we'd go weeks without seeing hardly any progress in my mind. Mm-hmm. And I think Becky could see us doing something a little better or a little stronger. And then one day, well, that was easier.
Right.
And that was kind of our cheer day.
Yeah. Yeah. And we tried to measure. We tried to measure as much. You know, one of the things we did was, can you reach your toes? You know, I think you told me when you first started.
I've never done that.
Yeah. And guess what he can do now? He can reach his toes. But, you know, looking at some of those little milestones, you know, one of the last things we were doing is how much can you rotate your hips, you know, and we measure him where he started every morning before PT, and then at the end of that session, and how much did we gain. And I think that's important to celebrate those little...
2 degrees.
Yes, exactly.
Or you only went backwards 4.
Yes, instead of
because
10
you
like
will,
you did last
you
time.
will in between visits go backwards, even if you work out at home.
Yeah.
Just because there's certain things I couldn't do on my own.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else that you can think of, like, to anybody that's kind of like, I'm afraid PT's gonna hurt, or I just don't know if that's, I mean, we already kind of talked about that, if they really feel like it's necessary, but
to me, it depends on what your goals are in life. And one of my goals was to not feel like I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. And so I'd talk to Becky. We'd set some goals early, like we talked about. And, you know, after about September, early October, I was done. And I came back because I wasn't where I felt like I needed. And it's funny how we came far enough along that last little push really showed us some things, and we gained a lot in some flexibility in my hips, which is very important for living.
Right.
Just getting in and out of a car was hard. And I've got more mobility in my hips now. And it's kind of like, why don't you want to feel good? And, if it takes a time commitment of an hour or 3 times a week here and an hour at home, or a small financial commitment for a 8-week session or 12-week session, what's that worth over the course of 20 years?
Right.
Of feeling like you're able to do what you want to do, whether it's a sport or a recreation activity or just playing with kids or grandkids
or not being grumpy to your spouse.
Well, sometimes you got to do that anyway.
But you know what I'm saying, when you're in pain, sometimes you just want to rip somebody's head off.
I may have been told that I'm not the easiest patient when I'm having bad days. But you're right. It affects you mentally.
Yeah.
Over time, you can't I can't physically take.
Right.
Just constant pain.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, people get caught in that, and so they do turn to either more alcohol use or food or whatever to try to make them feel better in that short term, but really in the long term, they're just creating more problems,
Oh, definitely. And I could see where it would be easy to go down that path because that's the easy button.
Yeah. Yep.
And, hitting the easy button is what everybody wants.
Absolutely.
I think I said to you one day when we were here, well, God, I put on all this weight while I've been hurt. So is there a pill you can take that makes you lose it? Because the magic pill, there is magic pills that make pain go away. And they're not always the healthy alternative to what's going on, because I think once you turn to that route, you will create other problems, but in turn you are not addressing the reason.
Right.
And sometimes it's not that hard to find the reason.
Right.
And they're fixable. Most things going on with our external part of our body is fixable.
Yeah. And it takes the internal, our brain.
Oh, that's the hardest part.
Exactly. Wrapping our head around, okay, this is what I need to do to get out of this. And, sometimes are we ever going to completely make you feel like you did when you were 20 years old? Probably not. But if we can help you feel, 10 times better than you did when you walked in here, we probably can do that.
I think my surgeon said it best. He said, well, where you're at is where you're at. Because I'm pretty good, but I'm not as good as the original maker. And that's part of it is our bodies do wear out, and not everything's going to feel like we want it to. Like you said, when we're 18 and we can go through anything and come out the other side great.
Right.
Well, at least maybe we just don't hurt if we play around a golf or go up the stairs to do laundry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you, Brad. I really appreciate it. And,
it's been quite a road.
Yeah. Well, good job.